Hey, thanks for joining us today. I'm meteorologist Michaela Smith. We have a lot to talk about, not only with more winter weather in the forecast, but today is also an anniversary of a deadly tornado that we're going to kind of break down. We did a podcast recently here at HailTrace talking about that, so we're going to recap some of that for you. But firstly, snow continues to pile on for the Midwest. More polar air continues to just clip areas by the Great Lakes. New England seeing some snowfall for today. There is a blizzard warning in parts of the U.S. today. And it's quiet right now for storms. However, a stormy pattern does start to look like it wants to take shape heading into next week. So we'll kind of break that down a little bit more. And then the December roller coaster temperatures just continues. Warm right now. Polar plunge as we head towards the weekend. You get a little bit of a warm up after that, and some things are indicating some colder air, another cold blast moving in a little bit closer to Christmas. Here's a look at those 24-hour storm reports from yesterday. Really just a lot of what you're going to see is just this is rain and snow that was moving in across parts of Minnesota. Minneapolis had a very messy commute last night, and you saw that snow started to move in across parts of Chicago. Michigan especially had a lot more snow last night, and it's really continued to move across the Great Lakes. This morning, it started to move more towards kind of the New England area, parts across of Ohio too. I think this is mainly more rainfall than snow, and then it continues to move more off towards the east. This is right around where we are right now. Actively still seeing quite a bit of heavy snowfall. We'll have, again, blizzard warnings, winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories, all going on across parts of New England and just the East Coast for today. And then our atmospheric river still off towards the west. So busy forecast, a lot of winter weather that we're talking about, but no storms. 4 years ago today, however, it was a very busy day. Lots of tornadoes were reported across the U.S. and a very deadly tornado impacted Mayfield, Kentucky. Our team here at HailTrace had a podcast that we put out last week, but we wanted to recap some of what we talked about as the team not only went out to Mayfield and had a lot of donations that they were able to give, but what exactly gave us these perfect conditions to see severe weather outbreak in December. bring it back to me. All right, so it seems that we may have had a few audio issues with that, so apologies for that. We're going to make sure that that gets up on our YouTube, though, a little bit later on today. Again, that is recapping what happened in Mayfield 4 years ago today. So we already put the podcast out from our team last week. If you have a chance to just listen to the whole podcast, it is a great listen, and it's really impactful just in general, but we're also going to have that recap for you later on our YouTube and then some of our socials this afternoon. So apologies for that video not working. We'll make sure you have a chance to listen to that a little bit later on today. So very different story again 4 years ago compared to what we're dealing with right now. You can see where we have this low pressure system for areas up towards the northeast. That's where we're seeing some snowfall, heavy rainfall, a lot of that rain likely to transition over to snow though as we go more towards the afternoon. And then you can see off into the west coast too. That's where we still have this atmospheric river. Kind of arrived on the west coast closer to Monday. Yesterday they were still dealing with quite a bit of flooding, still seeing flood warnings ongoing, and that's just with more rounds of heavy rainfall moving in. But we'll show you quickly the northeast. Snowfall again, and then cold rain for parts of the area. Western Virginia, right now you're seeing more of that cold rain that's likely to transition more to snow this afternoon, parts of Virginia as well. Then you jump down further to the south, not really seeing much activity. Close to Florida, maybe closer to Miami, you're seeing just a few stray showers. Middle of the U.S., most of us, nice and clear. Maybe a little bit of snow right now closer to Minneapolis. And then as you go more towards the west coast, again, that's where we have this atmospheric river. So just Vancouver, Seattle, you see this moisture just continues to stream off of the west coast. That's why especially from Seattle to about Portland, that's where there's flood watches right now, and then a lot of flood warnings too. Those rivers are expected to continue to rise. Here's your current temperatures. You're sitting at 22 in Minneapolis, 35 in Fort Wayne, 44 currently in Charleston, 34 up to the north. In the 50s here in Oklahoma City, 60s to the south, and then way down in Houston, you were closer to the 70s. Now I want to show you some of these current storm alerts. This is where we're talking about, again, up in parts of New England. Everything here in purple, that's going to be a winter weather advisory that goes until tomorrow. Areas highlighted in pink, those are winter storm warnings. These blue colors are going to be winter storm watch. But then I want to highlight parts of West Virginia here in red. That is a blizzard warning. So even though they're not seeing a ton of snow right now, as we go through this evening, especially overnight into tomorrow morning, lots of snow is expected. And with strong winds, they're expecting blowing snow. So that's why there is blizzard warning in effect for that parts of the country. And then back more towards the west and really just the northern plains, you can see lots of winter weather advisories again, winter storm watches. This is round 2. They just had a storm system that moved through yesterday, but we keep seeing these things called clippers. They're very fast moving storm systems that bring moisture, and with that Arctic air, it keeps bringing more snowfall. So you can see winter storm watch, and then also higher up in the mountains, you have more winter storm warnings, as well as high wind warnings. They're still seeing some of those wind gusts over 50 miles per hour for today. And in parts of northern Idaho and western Montana here in blue, still an avalanche warning. Avalanches have been ongoing since Monday, so with the heavy snowfall up in the higher elevations, also seeing more of those heavy winds, and then just continuing to see more of that moisture. There again, continues to be avalanches in the mountains. And like we mentioned, a lot of flood warnings. These are all flood warnings. Seattle, Olympia, so really a lot of Washington is dealing with that flooding right now. And then that darker green is going to be that flood watch. Also portions of Idaho and Montana under that flood watch. And we'll talk more about just how that atmospheric river is bringing multiple days still with flooding chances really now through about tomorrow. Here's a look at those 24-hour snow totals. You can see a lot of it has been closer to the Great Lakes. We're going to sneak a little bit closer here to Minneapolis and zoom in and just see. This is radar indicated snowfall, so it doesn't mean it's exactly what happened, but it gives us a pretty good idea. You can see this is showing maybe 6 to 8, 9 inches possible on more of the western side of Minneapolis. This is also on top of snow that they've just seen over the last several days. I mean, again, we've been seeing these rounds after rounds after rounds of winter weather, and temperatures have not made it back above freezing, or if they have, they've been very close just to get enough snow to melt before that next round moves in. Also in parts of Michigan, I have friends in Grand Rapids, and they said it was just a winter wonderland this morning, and you can see again, They had between 8 and 9 inches of snow, areas to the south. This moved right across the lake, a lot of lake effect snow here, closer to Troy as well, just to the north of Detroit. And then you come a little bit more now to the east. This is where the snow is ongoing right now. So Bingham, you're seeing some of that. Bradford, Buffalo, again, just to the east of the lake. That's where you see a lot more of that lake effect snow. But these totals are likely to continue to go up as we go throughout the day today and tomorrow, because that's where that snow is actively falling. Here's another, again, wide view across country, but you can clearly see where these winter systems continue to persist across the north. So where is snow still going to be on the ground? Well, by 5 p.m. today, you can really still see it's going to be areas up closer to the Great Lakes and then in the Rocky Mountains. As you head towards tomorrow, very similar. You might even get a little bit more snowfall starting to drop down, especially by Thursday evening. And then you head into Friday, we'll have another storm system. This one, though, might be bringing a little bit more freezing rain and ice possible to South Dakota, so we'll have to watch that very closely. But that's going to be, again, the next winter storm system that we are talking about. As for hail, we are not expecting any severe weather today, no thunderstorms across the country, so you can see that significant hail model. It doesn't even really give you any of that white color, which is what we would say is very small hail, not even really picking that up as we go throughout the day today. So significant hail model, not expecting any hail, but you can still see again where we have another form of frozen precip is going to be that snow and freezing rain. This is along the northeast, and then your second round will be up to the west. So play this through 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock this evening. Here's this next round coming in through Thursday. This is 7 a.m. This is what we talked about, the possibility of maybe some freezing rain, sleet mixing into that snowfall. Minneapolis, you're going to see more of this snowfall as well. Iowa, Illinois. We'll watch that next round closely as we go from Thursday into Friday. Thursday night into Friday, Chicago, you could be seeing a little bit more snow. As for the chance for hail, like we just showed you, no significant hail is expected for today, so this is your Wednesday forecast. Hail, not likely. And we're not talking about even thunderstorms for today on your Wednesday, tomorrow for your Thursday. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the forecast, once we get towards the weekend and heading into next week, that's when we start to talk about a little bit more of a pattern change. So by Friday, we'll be watching areas along the Texas coastline between about Corpus Christi and Houston. This is still a very low risk, isolated storms if possible, but it's at least a chance to talk about storms, even though we're not expecting any today or tomorrow. 5-day rain chances, you can also see where it highlights that next storm chance for the Texas coastline, but really pinpointing still where the atmospheric river continues to just bring heavy rainfall. You're seeing those dark red colors. That's on top of rain that they've already seen, the ongoing flooding that they're dealing with along the Pacific Northwest. They're still expecting 3 to 5 more inches possible over the next several days. Before we jump into all the flooding, does anybody have any questions, anything that they want me to go back and talk about for winter weather? We'll talk about a little bit more winter weather here in just a few minutes, but I do want to highlight the flooding just from this atmospheric river. But again, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I am watching and my producer Joey is also watching, and we can pop those questions up. Or if you just want to let us know where you're watching from today, we also love to see that. So again, please leave it in the comments. Flood outlook for today. Here's where we're already seeing a lot of that flooding again between Seattle and Portland. So that you can see that yellow color, that's that level 2 risk for hazards, scattered flash flooding. But now we've also added this secondary area. Yesterday, this was not included in this level 2 risk. So that's parts of Idaho and Western Montana. That's where we're seeing that level 2 risk. We go to tomorrow and you still see that level 2 risk in parts of Idaho and Montana, but we take that level 2 risk finally away between Seattle and Portland. And then once you get to Friday, you finally get a break from this round of the atmospheric river, although trends continue to favor wetter than average conditions across the Pacific Northwest, really now through the end of December and heading into January, so 2026. Future radar, here we go. We're going to break it down in kind of 2 different areas. First is where we see this heavy snowfall today along the New England area. And then this next round that we're talking about, again, this next system that'll start moving in this evening that will continue tonight, heading into tomorrow as well. So we'll have to watch this very closely as we continue to see this next storm system kind of pushing through. Might have to, I think my graphics might be frozen here. Joey, can you do me a favor and just click to the next one, or just click space bar, see if I can get this to come back to me. There we go. Perfect. Thank you so much. So this is, again, what we're watching. We'll start off a little bit closer looking at this next storm system. This is our graph model. So we like to show you two different models. The one I just showed you before, I can go back to that really quickly. This is the HER model. So it's focusing in on some of this snowfall that we're seeing more for like the New England area for today, but it's still pinpointing that snow tonight into tomorrow and that freezing rain potential across North and South Dakota and eventually maybe even closer to Minnesota. But here's really the focus of today. Heavy snowfall across New England. Cold rain, possible ice areas to the south, so areas like West Virginia. Then you play this forward. It does eventually by this evening transition over to snow. So I'm telling you, it's rain right now. Later on today, that's when we'll start to see more of that transition. West Virginia into parts of Virginia a little bit later on. Still some kind of cold rain mixing in. But then tonight and heading into tomorrow morning, that round kind of wraps up, but you already peak off back towards the west, again, into the Dakotas, and that's where the next storm system is starting to wrap up and get ready to move in. So now we'll focus more on that area. Again, this is the graph model. You see by tonight, here's some snowfall moving in, North Dakota and South Dakota, and then it starts to spread a little bit more by tomorrow morning. And in the afternoon, that's where we see this chance of some freezing rain possibly mixing in. This brings stuff a little bit further to the south than the HER does. So this gets it all the way into parts of Iowa, clips parts of Missouri as well, St. Louis maybe. Now, I'm not telling you immediately you're going to see snow. This is just one model that's trying to bring the snowfall a little bit lower. So it kind of dodges areas more like Chicago, where the previous model was showing you Chicago seeing more snowfall. And then as you go towards Friday, here's another round of snow with the next already getting ready to set up for the weekend. And as we mentioned with Friday, there's those storm chances. So a little bit of rainfall off the coast today and tomorrow. But by Friday afternoon, really, that's where we start to see more of that Gulf moisture pushing back in. And we'll have to watch for storms possibly along the Texas coastline between about Corpus Christi and Houston Friday afternoon into Friday evening. But I did mention a blizzard warning for you. So you can see along West Virginia, that goes until tomorrow morning at about 10 a.m. So through Wednesday night into Thursday morning, expecting that snowy transition a little bit later on. And that's because we're going to see quite a bit of snowfall possible later this evening. By about 9 o'clock, this is showing again radar indicated around 4, maybe 5 inches of snowfall. Then you jump to tomorrow afternoon, so past where the blowing snow may have happened, but snow that just continued to kind of fall. Now you're closer to maybe 8, 9 inches of snowfall. So a lot of snow in a very short amount of time with very breezy conditions could lead again to that blizzard kind of conditions and just a blizzard warning in general. Then you get to Friday, a little bit more snow may sneak in. But overall, it's the same pattern. The same areas are continuing to see that snowfall here. Sunday, you had a little bit more snowfall going into Monday, some lake effect snow up there. Heading into Tuesday, it's the same story. Areas are still seeing some of that snow. And then we'll watch another storm system, maybe bringing some snow more into parts of Utah, Colorado, as you head into Wednesday. Now, the big story is just the cold weather. We can see these 24-hour temperature changes compared to yesterday, and a large portion of the northern plains are sitting significantly colder today than they were yesterday. And this goes right on par with kind of what we're expecting. This U.S. divided trend continues. You see, this is your Wednesday forecast, colder to the north, still much warmer out towards the west. Then you get to Thursday, there's that great divide right across the country. Warmer temperatures again for the western half of the U.S., colder weather all across the east. And when we have this colder weather and then all these storm systems that move across, that's why we keep talking about snow, then the truly chilly air starts to move in for this weekend. So Friday, you start to see these more purple and white colors. You're getting kind of off the grid here. So that's 25, 30 degrees below normal. Here's Saturday, Minneapolis, Chicago, St. Louis. You're getting colder at this point. This drops even further on Sunday. So you can see West Coast, you're still much warmer, but everywhere from kind of the central plains of the U.S. to the East Coast, you're colder by the time we get to Sunday. And then by Monday, the warm starts to move back in and shove some of that air back to the east, but it's staying in the east as they continue to favor those colder than average conditions. So I want to show you how just chilly it's going to be. This is 6 o'clock this evening. Bismarck is only 9 degrees. Kansas City, you're 34. Oklahoma City, 45. Salt Lake City, you're at about 43. You jump to tomorrow morning, it is still very chilly. Areas like Minneapolis have still not made it above freezing, I think in just days. You're at 7. Bismarck is at 17. Detroit, you're sitting at 20. Tomorrow afternoon, this is the high temperature. Minneapolis, you're only at 15. Chicago, you're at 16 degrees in the afternoon. Detroit, you're at 24, but you're in the 60s here, areas to the south. Then on Friday, this is when the really cold air starts to move in. You're talking about negative temperatures in the morning. and the evening. Bismarck, you were -4. This is not a wind chill. This is the actual temperature, not the wind chill. And this is going to get even crazier here. I'll show you in just a second. Minneapolis, you're sitting at -2. By Saturday night, it's in the 30s in Oklahoma City, 20s in Kansas City, 30s in Memphis, -9 in Minneapolis, -2 in Chicago, 22 in Detroit. So a very cold Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, you're still in the negative values, Minneapolis and Bismarck. Then you get to Sunday, -20 degrees. Again, that's not the wind chill. That's the temperature. You throw in a little bit of wind on there, very cold, very dangerous. 21 in Rapid City, 27 in Oklahoma City, 30s in Birmingham, 25 in Memphis. So very cold air moving in Sunday morning. You're -8 in Chicago. And even by Sunday afternoon, things stay pretty chilly. You're only in the 20s and 30s for a lot of areas to the south. You're in the 40s in the Rockies. So it's pretty chilly air that's going to be moving in for this weekend. But then once you get back into next week, that's when, again, that warmer air starts to push more of that colder air towards the east. And that continues to be the trend that stays favored. Here's your temperature outlook, December 15th through the 19th. Lots of warmer than average conditions for the west, still favoring cooler than average conditions for the east. There's that great divide right across the middle. So if you're in that more gray color, you could kind of swing either way. And then the rain continues to favor that atmospheric river, just that trend of heavy rainfall for the Pacific Northwest. But if you're in areas like Las Vegas, Southern California, really just the Four Corners region, you're really favoring drier than average conditions and then a little bit wetter than average conditions across the Texas coastline and the coast of Florida. Before we wrap things up today, again, did anybody have any questions? If so, now's your chance to leave them in the comments. I can always jump back to something else if you would like to see something else. But in the meantime, make sure that you are following us on our social medias, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. We will continue to post things about the snow, about the cold. We're going to, again, recap that Mayfield tornado from 4 years ago that we weren't able to show in the forecast today. That will be on our social media as we go towards the afternoon. So if you missed that and you want to see that, just be sure to check it out a little bit later on. And right now, while it's kind of more of a quiet time between some storms, it's the perfect time to go back and rework some of those areas. Maybe you hit a 5-star area, but you weren't able to go hit those 4-star maps, 3-star maps. Now's the time to do that. So if you want that, you can give us a call, 855-334-4245, or you can email us at info@hailtrace.com, or you can visit our website at hailtrace.com. Well, if we don't have any more questions at this point, I'm checking over to the side too, and I don't see any. We will be back here tomorrow.